matter. What I mean by directed energy, energy is directed where it goes and what it does. It's like giving it new instructions, directing it what to do, but also it directs it in area. I'm not talking about something like this, a laser pointer. That's one type, but there's another type of directed energy. And we know this technology exists. The whole world saw it, even if they don't realize it. And this technology can be used for free energy for the whole world, once they realize it. So these huge things went away to that. Just imagine that, these huge towers, that's all that's left. They didn't burn up, they didn't slam to the ground. They turned into dust in midair. People were shown this image and told, collapse, collapse. You see this image? Collapse, terror, collapse, terror, collapse. And that's what they see when they look at it. But this is really frothing up. It shoots up and over it. It's like a drinking fountain of dust. Let's look at it more carefully. But why did so few people see it? Why was an entire planet just about pulled on this con job, this magic show? There are three things I found that really keep people from seeing this. Poor problem-solving skills. Okay, great. It's hard to listen to. I'll try to talk louder too. Groupthink, peer pressure, and we're all sensitive to peer pressure, and it's a powerful force, and they're also terrified of the implications. And any one of those things will keep people from seeing what happened. They'll blind themselves to it. A combination of those things is a double whammy, but any one of these things will keep people from seeing it. But I'd like to focus on the first, problem solving. The answer is 27, right? Am I right? Well, it depends on what the question is. How do you know? If you start out with the answer, to what question? Syntax is the ordering of things. This question can be answered, there's two different answers, depending on how you group the mathematics of it. So the order in which you proceed gives you a different result. And the same thing is true for this kind of problem solving. If you begin with how it happened, how it happened. And so eeny, meeny, miny, mo, fire, thermite, dynamite, nukes, mini nukes, pocket nukes. There are all these different choices that we're left with, and that causes us to have a biased data collection. We go looking for data to support these items. But then what happens if it's something else that we didn't foresee? What we're doing then, essentially, is using a theory on how it happened to determine what happened. We imagine what happened, and then we're solving an imaginary problem. That is the secret to a magic show as well as a cover-up. You get people to assume how it happened, and they argue round and round about opinions of how and what they imagine, what they think happened, and they never look at the evidence of what happened. So instead, let us start out collecting data, looking at the data to determine what happened, and after you determine what happened, you can figure out how it happened. The data will tell you the truth. Keep listening to it until you understand what it's saying, and don't let yourself get distracted away from it. There's lots of distractions. Well, for example, you start out looking, not looking into this type of technology. You wouldn't ever get to the right answer. This is steel turning into dust. Let's say you want to impersonate these beams. Over here, there's all this thick, opaque dust that blocks out all of the sunlight trailing these beams. So let's say you're going to impersonate the beam. You jump off, you cover yourself with dust and jump off the top of the building. The person on the ground looking up, are they going to see that dust trailing behind you? No. Okay, get a couple of bags of flour, jump off and heave the flour out as you're falling. You still don't have enough. How many armloads of flour are you going to have to eject off of you to make that much dust that blocks out 100% of sunlight? For a short period of time, it actually blocked out the sunlight. That has to be the material itself frothing up into dust to create that much dust. So something that turns solid steel into dust exists, some technology. Now going back to the previous slide, if you hadn't considered that, you'd start out with nukes, thermite, fire, all sorts of, you wouldn't have included that option because you don't know that technology. But the data will show you that it exists. So, we're going to start out with what happened. After you determine that, and only after you determine that, can you talk about how it happened, who did it, why they did it. But we're just going to focus on what happened, because that really causes the rest to unfold. And you cannot determine anything else until you determine what happened. And many of you, a year ago, probably heard about that well-publicized case of Casey Anthony, the mother who was accused of killing her child. She was guilty, she's guilty, she did it, she was guilty, she did it. We don't know if she did it or not, but if you don't know what the crime was, how can you convict her of it? The prosecution failed to determine what happened. And that's why the jury couldn't convict her. We don't know if she's guilty or not, but what was the crime? So it's important to determine what happened. Well, we know the towers did not slam to the ground. If they had slammed to the ground, there would be over 1 million tons of debris left on the ground, which didn't happen. And if they slammed to the ground, Manhattan would have been flooded because of the water retaining wall would have been ruptured. All of the subway tunnels would have been flooded. That didn't happen. And if it slammed to the ground, the seismic recordings would have shown it. Didn't happen. There are a lot of other pieces of data, but these are the 3 basic things. So, looking at what happened. Lack of debris. The bathtub that keeps out the Hudson River was not destroyed. Low seismic signal, and there's all sorts of other things we'll cover. A lot of people like to look at the toasted cars. That's always a fun one. So the lack of debris. If there was over 1 million tons that crashed to the ground, we'd see a pile. All right, here's this nice September day. You work at the World Trade Center. It's Tower 1, Tower 2, Tower 3, this one that often gets forgotten. And here's where you go to work one morning. Beggars Trust. And you get in your air-conditioned office, it's still kind of warm in the fall, and you're going to look out your air-conditioned office across the street there. What are you going to see? What's over there across the street? Whoops! Where'd the building go? This is right across the street. This room is still intact. The window is still intact. And the building is missing. That was Tower 2. You see enough on the ground? Let's look at that again. Looking from right about down here. Now we're going to look the other direction. That's building 4. There's a main body and then there's a north wing. All that's left is the north wing. Main body is gone. What's missing? You take a broom probably and almost sweep up the remains. And pretty much only buildings with a WTC prefix were destroyed that day. And really, the FX didn't even spill across the street. That's pretty directed. Here's a top view of the site. And you'll notice over here, lots of holes. There's these zones where materials missing, these cylindrical zones, and here they sort of coalesce into a large volume. It's approximately 50% of the building. And you know when they took the building down, there's an ambulance that was parked in front of Tower 1. There it is. There's the north wall and the south wall. And you have aluminum cladding. The building was a steel structure with aluminum cladding. Aluminum cladding is about all you see here. You don't see any of the steel wheat checks, the outer wall. And this is right in front of the building. This ambulance doesn't even look clobbered. Looks in good shape. Where did the building go if it crashed down? This is right in front of it. You'll notice this little pile here in the middle. That's the remains of stairwell B. So here's the one we saw before. This is the very next day.
Down in Lower Manhattan today, George. I don't know if you heard a little earlier. We raised this question, which was actually raised by ABC's Jackie Judd, as we look at these areas down below, and the video where the towers used to stand and where is all the rubble gone. And have you been able to is there any way you can answer that question?
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I apologize. Jackie Judd and several other people keep asking us, when you look at where the towers used to stand, there is surprisingly so little rubble. Where did all the rubble go?
It's a very good question, Peter, and I have asked some people who've been doing some of the rescue and recovery work this morning. If you look behind me, you can see the very remains, the skeletal remains of the World Trade Center. And one volunteer, Robert Gerlinski, explained to me the reason there's so little rubble is that all of it simply fell down into the ground and was pulverized, evaporated.
Evaporated? I don't mean to make fun of it. Whoops, I did it. Does it go out and cut out over here? I was thinking of event. Maybe I should stay over here. He was trying to describe, the poor guy, he's trying to tell the world what's going on there. And that's the best he could do. The building's evaporated. But what he had, how else do you explain why there's no rubble there? But what he has captured to tell us is that there was a lack of material left. They're all commenting, where did the material go? Where did the building go? Where did the rubble go? I remember hearing that live and thinking, oh good, somebody's asking the questions that I've been asking. That was the last day I heard that. This is an elevation map of all that was left. This little bump up here, that was stairwell B. And there were 14 survivors in there that walked out. There's the missing building 4. 22-story building, which is one of the tallest skyscrapers in most towns, went missing, except that little bump that we saw that was left. And here was one of the guys who was in there.
I heard this very, very loud noise above me. It was just a tremendous roar, and it was above, and it sounded like it was coming towards you, and then the wind, very, very fierce wind, and my helmet started lifting me up off the ground, and so that's when I crouched down. The next thing I just crouched down. I got to the corner of the staircase by the railing, and I just got as small as I could possibly get. Because I'm not a big guy to begin with, so fortunately I'm not. So I got in and I literally, well, I guess the best way to describe it, I tried to crawl into my fire helmet. That's what I wanted to do, just to protect myself. And I wasn't sure what was going on. I thought the building might be coming down, and I figured, okay, this could be it, you know. I mean, and I was a little angry.